Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, and I'm real glad that you could join us again. We're going to be in conversation with Rebecca Kasen. She's an advocacy director at Community Access Unlimited, or CAU, located in New Jersey. And she's joining us on the program to talk about what the month of March as Developmental Disability Awareness Month means to them and many of the programs that are available to assist people. Welcome to the program, Rebecca. Thank you for taking the time this morning.
And thank you for having me on.
You're the Advocacy Director at Community Access Unlimited. Give our listeners a brief background. What is it that you do, and why is it that you're doing what you do now?
So CAU has always had a advocacy component. We see ourselves as a civil rights organization more than a direct service provider, although we do provide a lot of direct services. Because of that, our advocacy team is reaching out to the community, to elected officials, to each other, to other providers, to pretty much everyone to get our message across. And whatever the message may be, which is generally an inclusive message, but then we generally have some specific messages. Right now, of course, we are concerned about things involving the coronavirus and ensuring that people with disabilities have the supplies they need. But prior to all this, we were focused on things like assistive technology, reasonable accommodations at work. Some of the other things we've dealt with recently also involve wages for direct support professionals and ensuring that the reimbursement rates that we get from Medicaid are high enough that we can pay our direct support professionals a competitive wage.
Are we talking, you're an advocate for all types of disabilities? Or are there certain disabilities that you go to these elected officials and corporations with to try and get support?
The majority of our members have either an intellectual or developmental disability. However, we do provide supports to people with all different abilities. So while the majority of my advocacy efforts are focused on the IDD population, that stands for intellectual and developmental disabilities. A lot of the advocacy work we do can be generalized to the greater disability community.
Do you find any resistance when you're talking about helping some of these people with these disabilities from these elected officials when it comes, to the financial aspect and things of that nature?
Absolutely. We're always asking, for money, and there's only so much in the budget every year, and we always have to explain why what we need is so vital. We have a great relationship going right now with the governor and the state Senate president. They really understand the needs of the ID community, and they have been working with us and trying very, very hard to increase the funding for direct support professionals. But it's going to take a lot of money and a lot of time before we can get to the point where these are competitive wages and we can ensure that we have a very strong workforce.
Now, you mentioned some of the allocations for monies that you may receive. What are some of the specific issues that you bring to the lawmakers in order to sway them in your favor? Well,
we generally have our advocates. These are individuals with disabilities speak to lawmakers. My job is to coordinate, to assist, but I try to have our members speaking for themselves. That's the point of the self-advocacy movement. We, as I said, a big one right now is our Medicaid reimbursement rates so that we can pay our direct support professionals. We also point out the gaps in services. One of the other initiatives that we've been working on is that assistive technology, which means communication devices, it means a lot of things, but we're primarily focused on communication devices right now, that individuals, when they graduate from high school and are entering our disability service system, may have a 3 to 4 month gap where they lose the device they use to communicate. And so we're trying to work with our elected officials to bridge the gap, to come up with some funding ideas so that people don't lose their ability to communicate with the outside world.
There are so many things going on right now. You mentioned the COVID-19 situation. We have the presidential elections coming up, both state and local elections, the debates. When it comes to the people that have disabilities, communicating and participating in these things that are going on. I mean, we've got the census going on. How is CAU able to advocate for so many things for so many people, especially at a time, now? What are you doing to get the awareness out about the needs of these people with disabilities, especially during these times?
We are very lucky that our supporters have made the funds available for us to have a very strong advocacy team. So we are able to do things. For the census, we have a census team going. They are trained, so they train all of our staff, and they've trained as many of our members as possible on what the census is, why it's important, where to get assistance. We were planning on, however, obviously things have changed, setting up computers on the main floor of our office to invite the whole public in, anyone who does not have access to a computer to fill out their census. Obviously, that is delayed due to COVID-19, but we are doing whatever we can to explain to our members and the general public the importance of the census, because funding is tied to it and representation in Congress is tied to it, and that's so critical. As for voting, I am proud to say that a greater percentage of our members vote than as compared to the general population. So we have about a 50% in primary voter turnout, which is great. Ideally, we would have 100%, but we're working. The way that I communicate with our members about the importance of voting is we start with voter registration drives about 8 weeks before every election, 12 weeks, before every election. We then are hopefully going to have a candidate forum before the general election. I will post in both our newsletter, our website, and send out emails candidate statements on disability issues. We are going to see if we can get candidates on the record about issues that are important to us. And I make sure our members know that. I make sure it's in language that they understand, and that includes visual cues if needed. And our members are really engaged. Most of them can tell you they're elected officials at the state level, which I am sure plenty of people in the general population are not able to do. And that's because we've made it such a priority for them to know.
I'd like to talk about the fact that you offer so many different levels of assistance, housing, life skills. It's not all about politics. It's not all about medical care. It encompasses the whole lifestyle of people that have disabilities, including money management as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely, because in order for people to live productively in their community, they need support, and that's not just medical care. Although we do provide residential support, and some of those supports do have nursing, we also provide employment supports, and that's so important. If somebody wants to get a job and get paid a competitive wage, but needs supports on the job, we will send our staff in with them. That's all part of our, while that doesn't seem as part of our advocacy efforts, that is very much part of our advocacy efforts, because we're advocating for our members to be fully included in the community. So we have to provide the supports for them to be fully included in the community.
Being fully included, I mean, put it into perspective for our listeners. About one in every 4, 1 in every 5 people in America has a disability. Is that accurate? Absolutely.
And we see, especially with our aging population, as people develop disabilities, they become more and more socially isolated, which we have major concerns with. Amongst our other initiatives is we have our Union County Interfaith Coordinating Council, who, amongst other things, their main goal is to get our members involved in the faith community, which can mean picking up somebody and driving them to church, but it also means letting them know about events. When they get to an event, making them feel welcome and at home. Today, actually, we hired somebody whose job it is to drive our members to a couple of churches about 15, 20 minutes away from their home, because these individuals don't need support while at church, but need support to get to church. So we do things like that as a way of ensuring that our members are involved in the community as full, productive, tax-paying citizens.
Where can our listeners get some more information, especially now during March, the Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month? Where can we get some more information online?
So our website is caunj.org. On that website, we also created a second website where the link is there about COVID-19 that has local to Union County issues as well as disability-related issues to COVID-19 and combating it.
Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us here on the program this morning.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Rebecca Kasen, Advocacy Director at Community Access Unlimited in New Jersey. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, listen in, download at SoundCloud, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Health Professional Radio.